Be me, 28-year-old male. My name is Leo. I work as a user interface designer for a mid-sized tech company. The pay is decent, the work is challenging enough to not be boring, and my coworkers are a mixed bag of tolerable human beings. It's the standard open-plan office. A wide, sterile room with rows of identical desks, low fabric-covered dividers, and the constant, low hum of computers and forced air ventilation. The only personal touches are the sad-looking desk plants and the coffee mugs with witty, soul-crushing corporate slogans. Our team is a small ecosystem. There's Marcus, the project manager, a guy whose entire personality is based on rock climbing and agile development methodologies. There's Sarah, the front-end developer who speaks almost exclusively in code references and memes. And then there's Clara. Clara is our content strategist. She's sharp, intelligent, very good at her job, and an outspoken feminist. Not the online caricature, not the screaming at the sky type. She was articulate, well-read, and could argue her points with a terrifying precision that left most people just nodding along to avoid getting dismantled. She was also, in her quieter moments, deeply, profoundly cynical about men. I never really engaged with her on those topics. I learned early on to just keep my head down, do my work, and retreat into my noise-canceling headphones. My philosophy was simple: don't start fires, don't get burned. But you can't ignore everything in an office that small. The conversations just kind of happen around you. And a frequent topic of Clara's simmering frustration was relationships. Specifically, the relationships of other people. Our story, however, truly revolves around Samuel. Samuel was a senior database architect. He worked on a different team, but his desk was in our section of the office. To put it plainly, Samuel was not a conventionally attractive man. He was in his early 40s, significantly overweight, with a gentle, doughy face. His hairline had retreated to the point of no return, leaving a small, lonely island of brown hair on the front of his head. He wore glasses with thick frames that were constantly smudged. His fashion sense was non-existent. It was a rotation of faded polo shirts, always a size too small, and khaki pants that had seen better decades. He was quiet, unassuming, and had a habit of humming softly to himself while he worked. He was, by all of society's shallow metrics, an ugly man, and Samuel was married. Not just married, but happily, visibly, sickeningly in love. His wife's name was Emily. Sometimes she would drop by the office to bring him lunch or to meet him before they went out in the evening. Emily was, for lack of a better word, radiant. She was beautiful in a very natural, girl-next-door way. Bright, intelligent eyes, a warm smile that seemed to light up her entire face, and a laugh that was light and genuine. She was fit, stylish, and carried herself with a quiet confidence. The first time I saw them together, I admit, I did a double take. They looked like a casting error in the movie of life. He would see her walking toward his desk, and his entire demeanor would change. The quiet, humming database guy would be gone. His face would break into this enormous, unguarded grin. He'd stand up, his eyes locked on her, and he would hug her like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. She would hug him back just as tightly, burying her face in his shoulder and laughing. They'd whisper to each other, share a small kiss, and for those 2 minutes their little desk area became a bubble of pure, unfiltered affection. It was sweet. But it was a visual contradiction, and for Clara it was a personal affront. It was a Tuesday afternoon. The post-lunch lull had descended upon the office. A few of us were gathered in the break room making coffee. Samuel and Emily had just left for a dentist appointment he'd forgotten about. Wet all seen their little reunion. Clara was leaning against the counter, stirring her tea with a furious, rhythmic clinking of her spoon. Her jaw was tight. "I just don't understand it," she said to no one in particular, but loud enough for all of us to hear. Marcus, ever the diplomat, just grunted. Sarah didn't even look up from her phone. Clara wasn't deterred. Seriously, how does a man like that get a wife like that? The question hung in the air, thick and uncomfortable. It was the thing a lot of us had probably thought but would never say out loud. He seems like a nice guy, I offered weakly, just to fill the silence. Clara scoffed. Nice? What is nice? A golden retriever is nice. Is that the bar now? Is the bar for male partnership so low that all you have to do is be nice and you get a woman who looks like a model? She took a sip of her tea, her eyes scanning our faces. There are handsome men, successful men, men who actually take care of themselves, who can't find a date, but Samuel, he gets Emily. It's a statistical anomaly. It's an insult to biology, it makes no sense. She wasn't yelling, it was worse than that. She was speaking with the calm, measured tone of a scientist presenting a deeply flawed and offensive equation. There has to be something else going on, she continued, her mind clearly working through the possibilities. Maybe he's secretly rich, like family money. She has to be a gold digger. It's the only logical explanation. Marcus finally spoke up. He's a database architect, Clara. He does well, but he's not a secret millionaire. His dad was a postman. We all knew this because Samuel had proudly told us when his dad retired. Clara's theory was publicly debunked, but her conviction was unshaken. Then it's something else. Maybe she has cripplingly low self-esteem. Maybe her father was emotionally abusive and she's drawn to passive men. Or maybe he's manipulative. The quiet ones often are. You know, emotional control, gaslighting. I just stared at her. The ease with which she could diagnose a complete stranger's marriage with the most sinister of explanations was genuinely unsettling. I looked over at Samuel's empty desk. I saw the small, framed photo of him and Emily on a beach, both of them laughing, squinting in the sun. I saw the little sticky note he'd left on his monitor, gone to dentist, back by 3. Be good, it all seemed so normal, but Clara's words had planted a seed of doubt. From that day on, I started watching Samuel, not in a creepy way, but I just observed. I was looking for the cracks. I was looking for the evidence to support Clara's dark theories, but I found nothing. Samuel was just Samuel. He was incredibly good at his job. When a major server crashed, sending the whole company into a panic, Samuel was the calm in the storm. He sat there for 8 straight hours, methodically working through the problem, humming his soft tunes, while everyone else was running around like headless chickens. He never lost his temper, he never complained, he just fixed it. He was kind. One time, Sarah was having a complete meltdown over a complex coding problem. She was on the verge of tears, muttering about how she was going to get fired. Samuel rolled his chair over. He didn't belittle her. He didn't just give her the answer. He sat with her for a full hour, patiently talking her through the logic, showing her how to approach the problem from a different angle. When she finally got it, her face lit up with relief, and he just gave her a gentle smile and said, "See, you're smarter than the code, you just have to remind it who's boss." He was thoughtful. He noticed when the office ran out of the good tea bags and would bring in a new box the next day without saying a word. He remembered everyone's name, even the interns who were only there for a few weeks. He would ask you about your weekend and actually listen to the answer. These were all small things, but they added up. Clara, of course, remained unimpressed. "That's just basic human decency," she'd say. "It's the bare minimum. It doesn't explain his wife." Her obsession grew. She started digging. She looked up their social media profiles. "Look," she said one afternoon, triumphantly holding up her phone. She showed me Emily's Instagram. It was full of photos of her friends, travel, and her work as a landscape architect. And of course, photos of Samuel. A photo of them hiking, Samuel looking sweaty and tired but beaming at the camera. A photo of them at a wedding, him looking awkward in a suit, her looking stunning in a blue dress, their arms wrapped around each other. A photo of his hand holding hers, showing off her engagement ring. The caption read, "4 years ago I said yes to a lifetime of kindness. My best friend, my rock, my home. It's all a performance," Clara declared. "It has to be, she's curating a narrative. No woman is that happy with a man who looks like that. She's trying to convince herself." I was beginning to think Clara was the one trying to convince herself. The turning point came a few months later. The company organized a big charity fundraiser. It was a casino night held at a fancy hotel downtown. It was one of those mandatory fun events. Everyone had to show up, pretend to enjoy themselves, and donate money to a good cause. I bought my ticket, planning to make a brief appearance and then slip out. I saw Samuel and Emily as soon as I walked in. Samuel was wearing a rented tuxedo. It was a little too tight in the shoulders and a little too short in the sleeves. He looked profoundly uncomfortable, constantly adjusting his bow tie. But Emily was breathtaking. She wore a simple, elegant black dress that shimmered under the ballroom lights. Her hair was up and she wore delicate silver earrings. She wasn't just beautiful, she radiated a kind of inner light. And she never left his side. She held his hand, laughed at his quiet jokes, and looked at him with an expression of such pure adoration that it felt like an invasion of privacy just to witness it. Clara was there, of course. She was with a group of coworkers, a glass of wine in her hand, her eyes darting around the room. I saw her gaze fall on Samuel and Emily. I saw the familiar tightening of her jaw. I decided to get some air. I found a quiet balcony overlooking the city. I leaned against the railing, enjoying the cool night breeze. A few minutes later, the balcony door opened. It was Emily. "Oh, sorry," she said with a smile. "I didn't mean to intrude. It's a little overwhelming in there." "Not at all," I said. "I'm Leo. I work with Samuel." Her smile widened. "Oh, Leo, of course, Sam has told me about you, the UI wizard." I chuckled. I wouldn't go that far. We stood in comfortable silence for a moment. The city lights twinkled below us. "He's a good man, your husband," I said, not really knowing why. The words just came out. "He's the best," she replied, her voice soft. "He really is." I don't know what possessed me. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was months of listening to Clara's cynical theories, but I had to ask. "Can I ask you a personal question?" She looked at me, her expression open and curious. "Of course." I took a breath. "You two just seem so incredibly happy. It's rare to see that." That was the polite way of phrasing it. She knew what I was really asking. The unasked question was hanging in the air between us. Why him? She didn't get defensive. She didn't seem offended. She just leaned against the railing, a thoughtful expression on her face. "Before I met Sam," she began, "I dated the kind of men you're supposed to want." My ears perked up. "I dated a guy in college, a star athlete. He was gorgeous, looked like a movie star. All the girls wanted him. He was charming, funny, the life of the party. He was also a serial cheater. He broke my heart into a million pieces." She paused, her eyes distant. "After that, I dated a lawyer. Successful, ambitious, drove a fancy car, lived in a beautiful apartment. He took me to expensive restaurants and on lavish vacations. He was also a narcissist. Everything was about him, his career, his problems, his success. I was just an accessory, a pretty thing to have on his arm at corporate events. He never once asked me about my dreams." She turned to look at me. "I spent years chasing this idea of the perfect man, the man who ticked all the boxes on paper, handsome, successful, confident. And all it got me was heartache and a feeling of being completely invisible." I listened, completely captivated. This wasn't a story I expected to hear. "I was done with dating," she continued. "I decided to focus on myself, on my career. I started my own landscape architecture business. I was working on a project for a new office park. That's how I met Sam. He was the database architect for the company that was building the park." A small smile played on her lips. "Our first meeting was a disaster. The network was down, none of the plans would load. Everyone was stressed out and snapping at each other. Sam was the only calm person in the room. He just sat there, patiently working, telling terrible jokes to try and lighten the mood." She laughed softly. I thought he was sweet. "He made me laugh. After the project was done, he asked me out for coffee. Not a date, just coffee. He said he wanted to ask for my advice on what to plant in his mother's garden. We met for coffee and we talked for 3 hours. We didn't talk about his job or my job. We talked about books, about movies, about our favorite kinds of trees. He told me about his passion for building intricate ship models. He showed me pictures on his phone. The level of detail, the patience it must have taken, I was fascinated. He listened to me, she said, her voice filled with a quiet awe. When I talked about my passion for garden design, his eyes didn't glaze over. He asked questions. He was genuinely interested. He asked me about my favorite projects, my biggest challenges. For the first time in a very long time, I felt seen. He wasn't trying to impress me. He wasn't trying to be cool or charming. He was just him. A kind, gentle, incredibly intelligent man with a passion for ships in bottles and a love for his mom's garden. She looked back toward the ballroom, where she could probably see Samuel waiting for her. The world is full of handsome men who will make you feel small. It's full of successful men who will treat you like an asset. I was so tired of it. I realized that the things society tells you to value in a partner, the perfect face, the perfect body, the high-powered job, those things are hollow. They don't keep you warm at night, they don't hold your hand when you're scared, they don't make you laugh so hard you cry. Sam does that, she said simply. He makes my world better just by being in it. He's the most fundamentally decent human being I have ever met. He celebrates my successes as if they were his own. He supports my dreams, even the crazy ones. He makes me feel safe. He makes me feel loved for who I am, not for what I look like. She finally turned to me, her eyes shining. So yes, my husband is overweight and bald. He wears goofy polo shirts. And I have never, not for one single second, felt more cherished or been more attracted to anyone in my entire life. What other people see when they look at us, it's just noise. It doesn't matter. What I see is the man who rebuilt my faith in love. I was speechless, utterly and completely floored. It was the most honest, beautiful, and profound explanation I had ever heard. It wasn't a justification, it was a declaration. The brutal truth wasn't about Samuel or Emily. It was about Clara, it was about me. It was about everyone who looked at them and saw a mismatch. The truth was, we were the ones who were blind. At that moment, the balcony door opened again. But it wasn't a coworker, it was Clara. She had a strange look on her face. She had clearly heard everything. Emily and I both looked at her. The air was thick with tension. Clara's face, usually a mask of cynical confidence, was crumbling. Her eyes were wide, and there was a vulnerability in them I had never seen before. She looked at Emily, her mouth slightly open, as if she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. Emily, with a grace that was almost supernatural, simply smiled at her. It wasn't a triumphant smile. It was a kind, understanding smile. "It's a beautiful view, isn't it?" Emily said, effortlessly diffusing the situation. Clara just nodded, unable to speak. She looked from Emily back to me, and then her gaze drifted into the ballroom. She saw Samuel standing awkwardly by the bar, nursing a glass of water, clearly looking for his wife. He caught Emily's eye through the glass door, and his face lit up with that same incredible, unguarded grin. He gave a little wave. Emily waved back, her own smile mirroring his. Clara watched the entire exchange. She saw the look on his face. She saw the look on hers. She saw the invisible thread that connected them, a thread woven from kindness, respect, and a love so deep and real it was practically a physical force in the room. And in that moment, I saw 30 years of her carefully constructed, cynical worldview get demolished by a single, gentle smile. She didn't say a word. She just turned and walked away, back into the noise of the party. But she wasn't the same. The change in Clara wasn't immediate or dramatic, it was subtle. She stopped making comments about Samuel. She stopped talking about relationships altogether. She became quieter, more observant. One day, about a month after the party, I saw Samuel struggling to carry a large, heavy box of old server equipment to his car. He was red-faced and out of breath. People were just walking past him. Then I saw Clara walk up to him. She didn't say much. "Let me help you with that," was all she said. Together they carried the box to his car. When they came back, Samuel was thanking her profusely. "It was nothing," she said, and then she did something I never thought I'd see. She looked him in the eye and gave him a small, genuine smile. "Emily is lucky to have you," she said, her voice barely a whisper. Samuel looked taken aback for a second, then he broke into his signature grin. "I know," he said, "I'm the luckiest man in the world." I realized then what the brutal truth really was. It wasn't that Clara was wrong about the world being superficial. She wasn't. The world is shallow. It does place an absurd value on looks and status. The brutal truth was that you have a choice. You can either spend your life complaining about the injustice of that shallow world, or you can be like Samuel. You can build your own world based on your own values. A world where kindness is your currency, where integrity is your status symbol, and where you love with your whole heart without apology. You can be the kind of person who is worthy of a great love, not because of what you look like on the outside, but because of who you are on the inside. It was a lesson I never forgot. I started trying to be a little more like Samuel. I listened more. I tried to be kinder. I stopped judging people based on their appearance or their job title. I started looking for the hidden depths, the quiet passions, the fundamental decency in people. It changed the way I saw everything, and my own world got a whole lot better. Every now and then I see Samuel and Emily. They bought a house a few towns over. They have 2 kids now. I see their pictures online. Pictures of them gardening, of him teaching his son how to build a model ship, of her smiling that same radiant smile. They are still disgustingly, beautifully in love. And every time I see them, I think of Clara and the night her entire philosophy was shattered by the simple, brutal truth that a good heart will always be more attractive than a handsome face.